Hello, all you cool cats and kittens. We are back here, CS 105, still working in Microsoft Access. I am logging in to my workspace. Um, we're doing very heavy with demo stuff today. So actually hands-on. All right, wait for this to reorganize itself. All right, so in order to with this one, we are here in Canvas. Very important announcement stuff here on the homepage. Please make sure you read through all of these. The two, I guess I'll call out the three important points. We have changed P or Z credit. That means credit or no credit, and that doesn't get counted in your GPA. If you want your grade counted in your GPA, you want that traditional letter grade of A, B, C, email me directly asking for it. Also withdrawals with tuition refund, that has been pushed out all the way through May 8th now. So if you want to withdraw, email me directly, we'll start that process. More than likely, you'll get a W grade, which is the good looking withdrawal, and process in place for a tuition refund. That final decision, I can't make it, but I'll do everything I can to help get there. And then the last thing is this course has been extended all the way out to May 23rd, but still try to finish everything by May 8th. Try to stick with the plan there on Canvas, but I understand life is life right now. So we do have a couple extra weeks to get everything done. And we are continuing to do these online classes. We have the last meeting for an online class will be May 2nd. And then from there, it'll be a purely online class as you work to finish stuff out. So for today's class, I did send out an announcement this morning saying that we have class at 11:30, and inside there, you may have had this from last week, but in case you don't, there is a link to download the sample database. So go ahead and click on that and then save it. And for me, that comes to my download, and here it is. So today we're continuing to work with Access, and we're going to look at form reports. We have, of course, on Canvas, on the modules, there's the 2 pages you can look at. There's one page for forms, one page for reports. Covers the same material that we're going to work through together. A little bit more detail in Canvas. So go back and reference it. And then also at the bottom of the page is the video. Word of caution, the videos this week, the ones in Canvas, do not have any audio in them. So that's not a problem on your end. That's just how those videos are. Don't freak out, there is no audio. And then we do have some additional links down here at the bottom. If you remember the beginning of class when we did the PowerPoints and we would do watch a video, do a little practice, watch a video, do a little practice, that's these links down here. They go out to the GCF pages. So if that's a helpful thing for you, the links are there. You can keep doing those, but it's just with the transition of how we're doing class now, that doesn't work well anymore. So with that, I am now going to move to real-time demo, and we are going to start with forms. So I am taking that file that I just downloaded from Canvas, the Access 2016 database, and I'm going to just open that direct right here. And if you get this warning, say enable content. This is actually taken from GCF. So when you're watching along with those videos, you can use this same file. You'll notice this is built out, right? There's all sorts of fancy stuff going on here. The one that you're making doesn't look like this, and that's okay. Just a nice little demo that's going to help us go through all of the intermediate and advanced features that we want to be working on for this week. So let's take a minute and think about forms. A lot of us, we fill out so often that we don't really even notice when we're asked to use them, right? Why? Because they're useful. The person asking the information knows that they're going to get the information that they want, and the person providing the information knows that they are giving the needed information. Think about when I sent out that survey about what type of computer do you have at home? Do you have the software? That was a form, right? And those questions very specifically to gather the correct information from you. And what was my goal there? My goal was to figure out who needs this workspace and who can instead just go and download the software. So I wanted to know if you're able to continue this class online, right? So what was I looking for? What's your internet connection? What kind of computer do you have? And do you have the right? That's the three basic things I was looking for. And then the questions went a little bit more in depth just to make sure that I was getting all the information I wanted. You may have noticed if you tried to put in an email that was not your Maricopa email, it said, you have a problem, I'm not going to accept this. That was one thing that a form can provide, is input validation. So I needed your Maricopa email. That way I could use that to assign one of these workspaces to you. If you gave me a personal email, that wasn't going to work with the we had on the back end. So essentially what do forms do? They're a way of requiring information in a specific format, which means the person filling out the form knows exactly which information to include and where to put it. The instructions were clear, and there were programmatic validations to make sure what you were putting in that form is what I was expecting to see when I went in to review. So that wasn't in Microsoft Access, but it could have been, right? That whole concept of filling out a form, maybe you're at the DMV, right? You have to fill out that piece of paper, all of those things, right? If it's on a piece of paper, if it's on a database, forms are forms. For this class, we're using Microsoft Access, just in a way that we can all be looking at the same things. So, in terms of creating forms in Microsoft, there's quite a few ways to do it, but we're going to focus on the three most common ways. So we're going to use simply form design, and then the form wizard. So to get started, I'm going to close database navigation tab just so I don't confuse myself. And then I'm going to come over here and click one time on custom. I don't want to open it, I just want to select it. So I click one time. Now I come to the create tab on top, because what do I want to do? I want to create a form. So when I click on the create tab, it gives me all of these options, right? Tables, queries, forms, and reports. Right now we're working with forms, and I just want to do this the simplest way possible. So I click on the table I want, click on create, and now I'm going to say form. And it's going to create a form that lets me one record at a time. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, awesome. good. I didn't have to do a lot of work, and this is usable. So this is called stacked. You can see the fields are stacked one on top of each other in a nice layout, right? This was all automatically done for me, and it's automatically making a standard listing down the row for each customer. I'm going to close this one. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. Of course, if you want to save it, save it. I'm going to say no. Come back, click on customers again. And now we're going to do it with the form command. This is sort of making it from scratch. So I click on customers, go back to create. I'm going to say form design. And uh-oh, this looks scary, right? It's got all these grid lines. There's really nothing going on here. We have to do it ourselves, right? So what's the first thing we need to do? Well, we have some fields. We need some information on this form. So I'm going to come here and click on add existing field because I want to just add existing information to this form that I can work with. Once you get this side, you want to click on the button that says show all tables. And we want to be in the customers table sign. And then now we can pick out the fields that we want. So we're just going to make this one super simple. The customer ID, the first name, and the last name. There's two ways you can just on it. So I double click on ID. It drops itself right in. Or you can click and hold and drag them into place. A few more things to look at while we're design. Well, these aren't really, they're not lined up. So we can actually click on, and then once we get the crosshairs, you can drag them and make sure that they are all well aligned. We can change colors over the format tab. This is going to be all stuff that we had back from Microsoft Office, right at the very beginning of this class. We can put a background around a specific piece of text and change the color on that text for the first name, or maybe on the last name, I want to make that red text. We can even edit the, I'm just going to move this one over. So maybe instead of first name, we want this to name, right? So I would click on it here and I can just delete what's in there and instead type in given name. These are overlapping and I don't like it. We'll fix that later. And there we go. We can come back to our design tab and you'll notice I have property sheet over here on the side. That's not there by default. So you come here, design tab, and click on property sheet, and this gives you all kinds of stuff, right? So we can change the background color, effects on it, all sorts of things. So what I want to do right now, this being a white background, we can click on them by name, or we can just, excuse me, we can click on the three dots instead, and then we have all of these colors. I'm going to put like a nice kind of pale for my background. Click on that. It changes the background, not for individual labels, but for the entire form. One other thing we can do is we can add, for instance, what if we want to move from one person record to the next record? Well, you do that by adding a button. So you'll see right here on the design tab, we have controls. All of these different controls here. I want to add a button, and that is this one right. It freezes up on me, so I click on it again. And now you'll notice my mouse has this crosshair with a little rectangle next to it. What that means is I can now draw out where I want that button to be. So and then when I let go of my mouse, it pops open this window saying, okay, what do you want to happen when this is pressed? So remember, we said we want this to go to the next record. So what would that's going to be a navigation. And what do we want it to do? Go to next record. So there, we've selected what we want the button to do. We say next. And we could even, you see the button here, picture looks like. We can change that to be from what looks like a play button to a right arrow. Or we could even go out and select if we had something created or downloaded. I'm just going to with the arrow right, because that's pretty intuitive in terms of what it's going to do. Click on next and give a meaningful name. Interesting. Think back on our Excel stuff. This feels like making a macro. Guess what? That's exactly what this is. It's creating a macro, but it's very guided. You don't have to do all of the hard. You're just clicking through, and on the back end, it's creating a macro for you that makes this work. So remember, macros are programmed with meaningful names, so we know what this is doing, right? If we just leave it as command 3, that doesn't mean anything. So maybe instead, we're going to call this next button. So that way, if we have to go back and refer to it later, we know that that macro piece of code is referring to our next button. So I'll go ahead now and click finish. And now we can see that the arrow has been added, and we have our ID, first name and last name. So let's see how this form actually works. So we have all the way down here on the bottom right, different views. So right now we're in the design view. We also have layout view, datasheet view, and form view. So I want to see what this form actually looks like, and I'm going to click on form view. So now we see we have our ID. Remember, we changed this to given name, and we have our button. Let's go ahead and just test our button. If I click on it, each time it moves me to the next record. We also, now let's just look through them all. Next, we have the datasheet view, which is essentially going to look like a table, right? It's going to show you all of the data would be pulled by that form, whereas the form view is just showing you one at a time. We have, and what this one does is it allows you to move the pieces around. you don't have all of the other controls around the data adding and those sorts of things. Layout is just for adjusting the layout to make it look nice. And then back here on the design view, it gives you full control over everything. One more way to create, close this one again. I'm just doing a demo, I don't need to keep it. I'm gonna say no. Come back here, customers table again. And what are we doing? We're creating a form. And this time we're gonna use the form wizard. It's super helpful. It kind of steps you through step by step what you want to do, right? So the first thing we want to confirm we're using the customers table. And again, we'll keep it simple in terms of the fields we want. I want the ID, the first name, and the last name. Maybe this is for a call list, so I'm going to add the phone number too. Hit next. And now it's going to ask me, what layout do you want? I generally like to stick with the columnar default view that you're expecting to see, but play around with it and see which ones you like, what fits your needs. With columnar view, click on next. What do I want to call the form? We're going to give this something meaningful, right? Customers mean anything. Instead, let's call this one call sheet. Because what is this going to be used for? To call all of our customers and see how they're doing, if they need anything. And then we have two options once we do that. To view or enter information, or we can modify the design. First thing I want to do is see what it looks like. So I'm going to leave it on open form information and click on finish. And there we go. Pretty slick, right? ID, first name, last name, and the phone number. So there are some built-in buttons that these small ones down here at the bottom. So this one that looks like a play button is the next record, and that's exactly like the button that we created. As you click it, it moves you from one to the next. Directly next to last record, that's going to take you all the way to your very last one. Similarly, on the other side, we have previous, take you back one at a time, or first record, which will take you all the way back up to the top of the list. Couple things we can do here is it looks like a play button with a little star next to it. That allows you to create a new customer. So in this case, the ID, remember, is automatically generated, so we just leave that alone. The first name is going to be Chris, and last name is Pavlakos. Phone number is 480-555-5. Right? And you'll notice the ID field automatically filled itself in. I didn't have to put that, it was on its own. Click on next. And now when we navigate through, we can see that my new record added has now been included on the list. We can also delete using we can update using a form. So maybe I put in the wrong phone number. I don't have a 480, I have a 602 phone. So I can update that right here. And then now when I move from one to the next, I come back and my number is there. So another thing you'll notice is we used down the new button. We could instead click up here for new. And that gets us to the same place. also delete an existing one just by navigating to it. And my alarm goes off. Sorry about that. We could click the delete button right here. It's grayed out. That is a thing, but by default, that's not going to be grayed out, and you can delete directly from here. The refresh all, what that means is you can come here to the customers table, and let's say on this number 1, Tracy Beckham, I am going to change zip code. Instead of the North Carolina zip code, I'm going to give them an Arizona zip code. All right, so you can see, change that zip code to 85225 on the customers table. I come back to my call sheet, look at the first direct, and I don't have the zip code on this field, so instead we need to change something else. So the last name, instead of being Beckham, we're going to change this last name to, say, my last name instead, Pavlakos. So now that change is made here in the table, and it automatically updates back on the form. If it didn't update, by clicking this refresh all button would force that update to happen. So that is pretty much all I wanted to show on forms. I will reports in just a minute, but I want to pause for any questions in the chat box or come off mute that you have. You can do questions at the end, but I do want to just pause for a minute right here. Nothing heard. So I am going to close both of these so I don't get myself confused. Now we are going to work on reports. So forms and reports are mirrors of each other. A form is what you use to put information into the database. A report is to look at information from the database. So in Microsoft Access, you can make form, present your data, clear, concise format. It's easy to read, easy to understand. Important to note, a report can get its information directly from a table or from a query that you have saved. What does that mean? You can get information from more than one table. Maybe you can write a query and have some sort of summarized report. And instead of having to write that query every time, you just make a report. And every time you want to look at it, you just go open up that report and the information is there. So let's go ahead and just make a couple simple reports. Very similar to the forms, we're going to look at 3 ways to make it. We're going to just a basic report. So again, let's make sure we have our customers table selected, but we don't have to open it. What do we want? Create a report. So we click on create, and then now we're over here. We're working with the report buttons. So it's just a very simple report, a basic report. So I'm just going to click on report, and there we go. It's done. One thing to keep in mind is that when we do this, it's going to take all and kind of, excuse me, lay them out one next to each other with the data column underneath. And it's formatting it for maybe for printing, right? Field is going to have an equal column length. So you'll notice this ID field is super wide. It doesn't need that wide. We can save some space to make sure it prints on one page. So to do that, you just come and mouse over it and you'll see it turns into the two arrows. From there, you can click and drag and resize your column to make sure that they fit onto one page. So you'll notice there's kind of these dashed, that shows you where the cutoff is from one page to the next. So if we were to print this, every ID to state would be on one page, and then zip code would be on the next page, and you'd have to line them to actually look at it. So that's just a design consideration when you're making, in this case, the default customers one is not going to be very useful because it's 1, 2, 3 pages wide. So you'd have to do a lot of work to get that to be a useful report that you could print out one page at a time. So let's go somewhere where we have a little bit more control over it. I'm going to go ahead and close this one. Customers table. Again, just selecting it. And this time I'm going to do report design. So here it's similar to the form design, right? We get with nothing really on it, we need to add things in. So we need to add things in. I want to add existing fields from my customers table. What do I want? I want the ID. I want a first name, last, and a phone number. I'm just going to line these up so they look a little bit nicer. Right there. So you see those grid lines are really helpful, right? You can use those to make sure fields are lining up one next to each other. I'm doing it with my mouse. You can also use the keys on your keyboard. Fine adjustments just for one little spot back and forth. So now we have all the same on the report, right? So we're in on the forms, excuse me. We're in design view right now. We can come to report and see exactly what it looks like. We can do print preview. That's going to show us if this out on a piece of paper, what would it look like? So you can see when this prints, each page just has one person's information on there. The layout view, again, layout is just for moving the pieces around and making. We can do all the same things in terms of changing colors and fonts and those sorts of things. And then the design view gives us full control. The third way to make, I'm going to go ahead and close this one. Again, select my customers table. I want to create a report. And this time we're going to use the report wizard. And again, the wizard takes you step by step, right? It helps you what exactly you want to do. So again, I want to make that call sheet, right? So I want the ID, first name, last name, and the phone number. So we're selecting the fields, making sure we're getting them from the customers table. I'm going to click on next. Do we want to do any grouping? In this case, we don't, but depending on what exactly you're doing, grouping could be useful. Maybe you have instead of customers, it's for students, right? And you would want to group them by class. So if I were to group by 105, section 202, whatever our section number is, and I would use that as a group, then it would give me information on you, all of the people in my class. In this case, we're not going to do any grouping. We're just going to click on next. But I do some sorting. I want to put these in order by last name and descending. Click on next, and we have our choices for layout this time, and we can even change the orientation on the page, right? So portrait is tall, landscape is wide. We don't have a lot of columns, so I'll leave this on portrait. And then the wizard even gives you a handy little checkbox, right? Of, do you want the field width to be adjusted so everything fits on one page? Yeah, that's helpful. So I'm going to leave it checked. And then I'll click on next. What do I want to call this report? I'm going to call this report call sheet. And what do I want to do? I want to preview it. I want to see what it looks like. I'll go ahead and click on finish. Now, hey, that is a useful report. So on each page, I have, let's look at it. Here we are in print preview. I'm going to zoom out so we can see where the page ends. If we scroll down, we'll see, okay, this is page 1 of 8. And on that page, we have the last name, their first name, and their phone number. I might want to go back and change it so that the ID shows up first. But this is useful, right? Because I can take this and maybe I have 8 people making calls. I give each person one page, and then they have what they need. I can print this out and hand them out. They're going to have the phone number and the first name and last name of who they are calling. And most importantly, it fits nicely on one page. I can come to layout view and make my changes. Maybe the ID field doesn't need to be so big. Here we go. Make that a little bit smaller. And then I can even come to the design view and have all of my same full control as I'm used to. Go and close that one as well. And that is the end of me talking at you in terms of today. Let's hop into Canvas real quick and take a look at what I'm expecting from you of assignments this time around. So I showed you how to make forms and reports, and guess what? I want you to make some form reports. So we are back here in Canvas on module. Everybody's working really hard. So we are way, way, way down on module. And when this recording is ready, you'll see we have the online classroom from last week. I'll do the same thing on module 11. Online classroom will be right there. And then we have all of our pages, right? So there's the page on forms that reviews the same information we reviewed, but deeper, highly recommended that you go through and read everything on there. So we have the forms page, and then you have assignment, you have the reports page, and the reports assignment. Really quickly going to look at the forms page. Kind of talks you through what a form is and the demo that we did. All of that same information is here. Using the one from GCF, the module uses the Pokemon example. So remember, you can get that Pokemon database. It's up there on Canvas as well. You can follow through. This goes on and on. And then if you, videos here, but keep in mind, these videos do not have any audio, so you're gonna have to pay really close attention. And then we have the GCF links, those videos that we did on the first part of class, where we would watch the video and then do a quick practice, watch the video, do a quick practice. Those same type of videos are right here at the bottom of the page. So if that's a helpful thing for you, go ahead and check it out. The reports page in Canvas is set up the same way. Actual assignments, what do I want? So for the form, I'm going to be submitting 2 forms to me. And you have to use them to create a new record and modify existing. So what do? You open up Access and you're going to choose the table that you want to base your form from. Try the same database that you've been working with, right? So you created the database and then you created queries. Let's keep building on that. Use that same database. Pick which table you want to do. Click on the Create tab. And then you want to use a form, right? The forms, make sure you save it. So that's the first one, is I just want to see that very basic use create form command. I want to see that plain all on its own. On the second one, I want you to make one the hard way, right? So either use the form design wizard command. On that one, I want you to change the layout. I don't want to see that stacked layout. I want it to look different. And I want you to add some color. So change up the background color, change the text, whatever you want to do. I'm going to look that you change the layout and that you change the colors on the second form. So there's some more detail there. The colors can be whatever you want them, different from the default. I want to see that you made changes. So after you've done that, you're going to have 2 forms. So use one of them to make changes to your existing data. So number 1 is insert a new record. Number 2 is modify an existing record. When you're done with all of that, save the entire Access database and upload the entire database as the submission for that one. Next assignment for this week is reports. So this is simple, right? What I want you to do, I want you to make a report. But this one's, I want it to be based either a table or a query, right? You've already made a query. Maybe you want to turn that query into a report. Very important, make it fits nicely on the pages. For the most part, you should only need 1 page. If there's something extreme going on with your database, go on multiple pages, make sure it still looks nice. Once you've created that report, save it and upload the entire database, again, the entire Access database to Canvas. And then I want a comment on a submission on this one, what your report does. So think about what do reports do, right? You're analyzing information, or you're understanding the information, you're forming opinions. So, what does this report do? Give me a comment, give me 1 sentence about the use of this report. That's the 2 assignments for this week. If you have any questions, me know. Canvas, everything you need to do this is on Canvas. But if you need any help at all, I am here. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now. But if you're with me live, this now becomes time for any questions you have.